Let's dive right into this explainer. You know that feeling when you've got thousands of customer signups, but your marketing campaigns still just kind of fall flat? Well, a lot of times it's because that rich customer data is just sitting out on an isolated island, completely cut off from your actual marketing tools. Our source material today lays out a pretty brilliant blueprint for fixing exactly that. We're going to break down how to directly integrate SAP Customer Data Cloud, or CDC, right into SAP Marketing Cloud. It's really all about taking those isolated profiles and turning them into an absolute powerhouse for targeted, permission-based marketing. To keep us perfectly on track today, we're looking at 5 quick phases: the Sharmas & Co. Challenge, preparing SAP Marketing Cloud, configuring the data flow, testing and verification, and finally, some crucial technical points.
Starting off with Phase 1, the Sharmas & Co. Challenge.
Now, the documentation points out that before we even think about building this bridge, we have to understand how customer data actually enters the SAP ecosystem in the first place. And that all starts with RAAS, or Registration as a Service. Think of this as a cloud-based central nervous system. It manages everything: registration, login, profiling, basically making sure that any downstream systems stay perfectly updated the second a customer interacts with your site.
To make this concrete, the source material follows a fictional e-commerce brand called Sharmas & Co. Their main goal? Running highly effective, targeted campaigns. But to actually pull that off, they desperately need to sync their commerce customers with SAP Marketing Cloud, and they need it happening in near real time. By connecting the RAS data from their demo site straight into the Marketing Cloud, they unlock the real magic of permission-based marketing. Because honestly, without it, they're basically just guessing.
What I find really interesting about this architectural blueprint is how it takes what could be 15 totally overwhelming technical steps and just neatly organizes them across these 5 distinct system responsibilities. We start with the e-commerce setup on the site, lay the foundation in SAP Marketing Cloud, build the actual bridge in SAP Customer Data Cloud, push live traffic from the demo site, and then wrap up with verification back in the Marketing Cloud. All right, moving right along to Phase 2, preparing SAP Marketing Cloud. Let's see how they build a landing pad here. The guide maps out some absolutely crucial foundational setup that has to happen before a single byte of data can flow. You've got your communication setup, which means locking in the systems, users, and arrangements so these platforms can actually talk to each other securely. From there, you're establishing the OData service URL, setting up specific custom fields for the registration type, and finally getting your contact origin and category dialed in. Here's the really crucial part, though. You're not just clicking around in menus. You are actively making sure your marketing system knows exactly how engaged a customer is. By creating a custom field for a registration type, you can easily tell the difference between a light registration, like maybe someone who just dropped an email for a quick discount code, versus a full registration where they've built out a complete profile. This is huge because that distinction carries all the way through your APIs, your user interface, and your segmentation reports. The docs get super specific here, and for good reason. They highlight GIGYA, which, if you didn't know, is the back-end identifier for CDC. You have to meticulously prioritize this GIGYA ID within the origins of contact IDs. That way, when a customer signs up for, say, a product launch newsletter, their identity is perfectly recognized by the system. You also need to create a specific communications category for that newsletter and make sure it's fully enabled for subscriptions.
That brings us to Phase 3, configuring the CDC data flow. The foundation is set. Now we build the bridge. According to the source material, this bridge is called the Identity Sync Data Flow. This is the precise integration mechanism in SAP CDC that syncs customer profiles, consents, and subscriptions straight into those connected downstream systems. Think of this as the actual engine of our integration. It grabs the user's data and all their consent rules, packages the whole shebang up, and drops it exactly where it needs to be without losing a single drop of context. So, condensing a couple of the technical steps here, you're basically creating the data flow using standard templates, configuring your accounts, and, this is vital, meticulously renaming the attributes so that both systems are speaking the exact same vocabulary. Finally, you configure the outbound service call to something called hybris marketing. Actually, fun bit of trivia from the docs, that's the legacy technical backbone name for SAP Marketing Cloud. You are essentially painting the exact lanes on the bridge that your customer data is going to travel on.
Next up is Phase 4, testing and verification. It's time to see if this thing can actually handle live traffic. The documentation lays out a really seamless progression here, moving from a dry run right into a live end-to-end data test.
First, you run a test execution on just 10 records natively inside CDC, just to make sure there are no massive structural errors right out of the gate. Once that comes back clean, you simulate reality. You go submit a brand new customer registration on the live e-commerce site, and then jump straight into the SAP Marketing Cloud Contacts app to inspect that exact profile.
But how do you know for sure that it actually worked? Well, the guide gives us the exact indicators that mathematically prove your data crossed over successfully. In that Contacts app, your data origin field absolutely must say Jigia. On top of that, you need to verify that both the marketing permissions and the subscriptions are properly populated for that specific customer. If you see all of that, boom, your integration is a success.
And finally, Phase 5, Crucial Technical Points.
Before we wrap this up, I want to share a few little hidden landmines from the document. The kind of formatting details that will literally ruin a developer's Friday night if you miss them. Notice the agonizing exactness here. CDC stores date and time with milliseconds, plus a Z for Zulu time. SAP Marketing Cloud, however, strictly expects none of that. If you try to send the data as is, the system is going to crash, no way around it. You absolutely have to configure a format conversion in the data flow to strip those extra characters out.
There are a few more tiny requirements you absolutely cannot afford to overlook. For example, CDC integration with SAP Marketing only supports the version 2 OData service. To enforce this, your OData URL has to explicitly end with a specific code, V equals 0002. Also, when you're setting up that outbound call we talked about, the communication category has to be the exact communication category ID. These details seem small, but man, they are mighty. So what does this all mean for us? It really brings up the ultimate question from looking at this guide. How much revenue is just sitting trapped in your siloed platforms right now, simply because your customer data isn't synced in real time? Disconnected systems aren't just an IT headache, right? They represent severe, real-world marketing costs. But by following this blueprint to integrate SAP CDC with SAP Marketing Cloud, you can finally break down those silos, capture accurate consent, and actually know your customers. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you build some rock-solid data bridges in your own ecosystems. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.